one point, these were the most expensive pencils money could buy, and they have possibly the most coveted range of pastels around. But are the Holbeins really worth the hype? When I first tried a few Holbein pencils in my past video, I considered them to be highly overrated, but I'm giving them another chance and I've bought the full range of pastel colors to give them a proper go today. But for those that want the same wonderful colors at a lower price, I'm also looking into the best pastel alternatives today to see how they compare and if these unique pastel colors are really as unique as they seem. Very similar, suspiciously similar. I'm going to be completely honest, I expected to be blown away by these pencils, and instead I didn't find any reason why they should be so much more expensive than the other pencils I've tested today. So when I take this into consideration, I can see why I was confused and that I need to give the Holbeins another go with a bigger range of colors to try. So here we are, it's time to give Holbein another try. And since they are loved by so many for their beautiful range of pastels, that's what I bought. I'm still gonna say Holbein wrong. Holbein. I'm so sorry. The Holbein pencils are quite unique to use because they are made of wax, oil, and fat. So they are firm, but very creamy. They're not really like Prismacolor, but they're also not like a Polychromos pencil. So if you're looking for something different, this might be it. At a first and a second impression, I do like how these pencils look and feel. They are heavy and thick, so you'll get a lot of color out of them and they feel high quality. The Holbeins are a beautiful pencil. They lay down nicely, they are very easy to blend, and the colors of the barrels match the inside of the pencils really well. These pastel colors in particular are a beautiful range, especially if you love collecting pencils or want to add on to other sets you already own. They are very pretty and they feel really nice, and I can see why so many people adore these pencils even if they are not a personal favorite of mine. I know a few people will ask, so let's talk about Holbein's light fasteners for a moment. In fact, there's been a little bit of drama about this lately. After much confusion from artists on YouTube and in the art community, artist Jane Bush was able to get an official statement from Holbein, which is the first time I've seen any real information about their light fasteners. You can check out her video in the description below. But then today, I stumbled across another video from Lockery Fine Art, who I respect very highly, who got a very different and confusing response from Holbein. So I'll link to her video as well, and I recommend you check them both out. Consider both sides of the story if light fasteners is something important to you. If you're not using these on a professional level though, this is not something to get caught up in. And the budget brands that we'll be comparing these with today definitely don't have light fasteners ratings, so the Holbeins are still a great pencil in most cases. I stand by my initial assessment that these aren't as nice as some of the other quality pencils at the same price range, but that's a personal choice as well. I personally prefer my Posca pencils, Prismacolors, Caran d'Ache Luminance, and Faber-Castell Polychromos. But these are nice. I just think they are a bit overpriced. So let's take a look at some of our cheaper pastel tone alternatives. There's an interesting kids brand from Poland that's been grabbing a lot of attention as the perfect Holbein dupe. Pastelo. Actually, this is pronounced Pastel Love. How perfect. These are marketed to kids, so without trying these yet, I'd expect the quality to be similar to something like Crayola, but let's see. I haven't even opened these yet, but from the cover, these are already very similar. Suspiciously similar. Somebody has clearly copied somebody here. And let's not assume that Astra is necessarily the copy because they are cheaper. I decided to look into this and I can't find any evidence that points to who copied who, but this is more than just a coincidence for sure. But let's take a look at these Pastel Love pencils. For a cheap kid's pencil, these actually look pretty classy. They've got the closed end, they've got the nice finishing on them. But one big thing that I know would be a deal breaker for a lot of adult colorists is that there are no color names or numbers on any of these pencils. So if you're someone who likes swatches, that kind of makes it pretty tricky. You're gonna have to find some way to label your own pencils. I mean, I think this is more the kind of set that you'd probably just pick up and go with anyway, but let's actually see how they perform. These pencils look great and feel nice to hold, although the lack of names and numbers makes them difficult to use on a professional level. I'm not sure what to expect of these, but I'm hoping they'll be nice to use because they look gorgeous. These feel really nice when you're using a light pressure, but as soon as you want to burnish or actually really get the bold color out of them, it's just not quite working like I'd like. They're not bad, but they're not as good as I wanted them to be. So even though I've rearranged my Holbeins, the cover still has them in their order. So I'm going to see if I swatch these next to the Pastel Loves in the exact same order, just how many of them are a perfect match. Well, the Holbeins do feel like the best pencils in the world after using the Pastel Loves. Already, it's clear that these colors are an exact match, although I think a few of my colors have moved around in the box, or maybe one of the manufacturers decided on a different order for these first few. But other than 2 or 3 pencils that are a close match, the rest are almost indistinguishable from each other in color. It's no surprise that people recommend the Pastel Love as the best budget Holbein alternative. But while they look like the Holbein, they definitely don't feel like them. It takes a lot more pressure to get the same color from these pencils, and they don't allow for many layers or blend together like the Holbein. They definitely feel like a cheaper pencil, and that's to be expected for the price and the fact that they are designed for children. Because I'm using a lot of pressure here, I'm getting hand cramps for the first time in months. And I do a lot of coloring, so this is a bit of a deal breaker for me in using these pencils. It does help to keep them sharp and use light pressure, but the amount of binder in these pencils means you might struggle to get the beautiful bold colors that you're hoping for. So it will depend on what you're looking for in a pencil as to whether these are good for you. The colors are beautiful. They're a perfect match for the Holbein, and you'll be able to create beautiful pages with either of these sets. But the Holbein are much nicer to use, and that experience is worth the extra price in my personal opinion at this point. If you're wanting to try the Pastel Love, you can find them on Amazon Germany's website. But if you're in Australia or another location where they won't deliver, you'll need to shop online at a Polish art shop like I did. I'll post the link where I bought mine in my blog post. So given that a lot of the colors in these big ranges to me don't scream what I'd be looking for in pastels, I actually like the idea of some of these smaller sets that I have found on AliExpress, being the Marco ranges that you may have seen. So I've got here the Marco square set and a small Marco hexagon pencil set. This set was literally shoved in our mailbox like this. So I'm a bit concerned that these are already going to be a bit damaged. But let's start with our set of 24 square pencils. I immediately love this color range. This is exactly what I would be looking for in a pastel color range. These remind me a lot of the Brut Funer square pencils, although they are quite thin. So they do feel a little bit cheap, but it will be interesting to see how they perform. These are an oil-based pencil with a firm core and a square barrel. They are thinner than a Brut Funer and well presented with a beautiful range of colors. Performance-wise, they're comparable to Marco Raffine pencils, which is no surprise coming under the same Marco label. These Marco Square Pastels are another budget set of pencils, so we're not expecting Holbein quality here. But even as budget pencils, I paid about $20 US for the set of 24 on AliExpress. And for another $20, I could own the full set of 120 Brit Fiona square pencils, which in my opinion perform much better than these. I did a previous review on those if you're interested in checking that out. So you need to consider whether the pastel tones are a bit of a novelty here, and you'll be surprised how many of your current sets already include a lot of these colours, but more on that shortly. If you're wanting a cheap but pretty pastel set, I'd probably choose these over the Pastel Loves. But if you love pastels or love collecting pencils, they are both quite affordable, so I don't see a problem in trying them both. If you're looking for something a bit more practical, keep watching. I might have another solution for you. First, let's look at the other Marco pastel set. These perform similar but not quite as well as the Marco square set, and in fact, if you're buying on AliExpress, you'll often find them under the same listings when you buy. They are oil-based as well with a firm core. They do take a lot more effort to get results, and I don't really enjoy colouring with them, so these are not pencils I'd personally use again. They are nice colours, but the square set are just a bit nicer at a similar price per pencil. I don't even really want to colour another section on this page right now. These have no numbers or colours on them, so I'll probably end up giving these to my kids or using them as photo props or something else. By the way, I'll be including links where you can buy all of these pencils along with close-ups of my swatches and comparisons on my blog post in the video description below. So we have a really good quality set that is very expensive, and we have a few very affordable sets that are not great quality. I was kind of hoping we could find something in between, which brings me to my biggest question in today's video. Do you even need to buy these sets? Or do other sets of pencils already include these pastels if we just rearrange them? I've pulled out my Prismacolor, Brit Fiona, Black Widow, Arteza, and Crayola sets of pencils. I am confident that each of these sets should already include a decent range of pastel colors if we just learn what to look for. Surely. I'm curious to see just how many of our Holbein colors or even these Marco colors are included already in these bigger sets, and just how unique these Holbein pastels really are. So let's pick out the best pastels we can find and see what we have. So first, I'm just choosing what looks like the lightest colors from these sets based on the barrels. Then I'll swatch them out so I can easily see which can qualify as pastels and which are the most similar to our Holbein range of colors, to see if we have some actual Holbein alternatives in these sets you might already own. I've created this chart with each of my brands and the full 50 Holbein pastel tones range down the side. And now comes the fun but long process of finding a match for each color. While I'm working on this, let's take a look at how the Holbein Pastel Love and Marco sets compare on some different paper types against some of those brands that you might already be familiar with. First, our black paper from my previous color pencil comparison videos and blog post. I'm actually surprised they all work pretty well on the black paper that I've done them on. So Lindsay from the Frugal Crafter said that she thought the Holbein pencils felt a bit like the Artezas. So I wanted to try this for myself because I haven't heard anyone else say this, and I have to say, this is actually a pretty good comparison. They do have a similar feel, although I think the Holbeins do feel slightly nicer. I also wanted to compare these with the Posca pencils that are also a good quality pencil from Japan. And they are also quite similar to the Holbeins. I probably prefer them a little bit, but it is very close. It probably comes down to preference. Now comparing them against the Prismacolors, straight up, I feel far more at home with the Prismacolors, but I will admit here that I might be biased in that these are just comfortable for me because I use them so often. But I do find that the Prismacolors tend to feel a lot easier to lay down the pigment than these other brands without feeling as waxy as something like the Holbein. But all in all, these four pencils are all very good. You'll be happy with any one of them, and they all produce very good results, as you can see. So let's compare some of the cheaper brands. I was kind of hoping that after using a few other brands that I wouldn't notice the quality of the Pastel Love, but they are instantly scratchy. they're just not as good as these other brands. Okay, so I do think the Pastel Love are on par, but maybe slightly better than Crayola at this point. So I've got here the Spring Hill Digital Bristol Vellum, and I've got just a thicker paper. And without testing these pencils on 10 other different types of paper, the biggest thing I can see here is that there is a clear divide between what is a cheaper set of pencils and the more expensive set of pencils. So the Arteza, Prismacolor, Posca, and Holbein all perform so much better. The Brut Funa are sort of in the middle, and then we have the Pastel Love, Marcos, and Crayolas, all being a lower standard pencil. That doesn't mean that these are bad pencils, and in fact, I have bought the full set of Crayolas because one day I want to show you that you don't need expensive pencils to create art. But my point here was to give you a point of comparison because I know many of you are familiar with the quality of Crayolas, and sometimes we can spend a lot of money collecting pencils and buying pencils, not realizing that spending a little bit more can actually get us a much better quality pencil that can be a lot easier to use and can avoid a lot of that frustration that we feel with our art that we think is from our skill when in fact it's the tools we're using. So my goal here is to not convince you either way what to buy. It's just to help you in making a choice based on what you need and what you're looking for. Back to the Holbein chart. I'm cheating just a little for a few of these colors to make them a closer match. You can choose to do this or not, but adding a white pencil on top of almost any color will lighten its tone, giving us more pastel colors. And in this case, it fills a lot of the gaps in our range. Without this, some of these colors are still very close, but this just makes them even closer to the Holbein set. I've marked any colors I've done this with a little plus W, meaning plus white. And I've used my Prismacolor white pencil for all of these because it is the best at doing this, and you can buy this pencil open stock even if you're using other brands. Which is good because I think my pencil is about ready for a replacement. I'll put this chart on the blog when I'm done so you can print it for yourself to make your own pastel range out of these sets if you own them. None of them quite match the full Holbein range, but they all include a very good range of pastel tones if you separate them from the rest of their sets. Most of the missing colors are transition colors or not the main pastel tones anyway, but with more time or some little color mixing, we could probably make these other colors as well if they are really important to you. Or you could buy those few extras as open stock pencils. My biggest focus here was to see if the Holbein colors were as unique as they seemed, and I'm actually surprised at how many matches we've been able to make from these other sets. The Black Widows especially seem to have a really impressive range of pastel tones, particularly in the Monarch set. I was actually given the Monarch set for free to review when I first started my YouTube channel and ended up buying the other sets because these are a pretty good pencil. So these might be another good budget option for pastels to extend your color range. They won't be as pretty on your shelf, but they are practical, easier to blend than the Pastel Loves or Marcos, and they offer a great variety of the unique pastel colors that most other brands seem to be missing. Okay, if you want my honest opinion on all of this, here it is. And it's completely okay if you don't agree. If you're someone who has a bigger budget, who loves collecting pencils and who loves full sets, then save up for the Holbein. They are a beautiful set and the pastel range is quite unique. But if you're looking for the savvy option, trying to stick to a budget or just don't want to buy more pencils than you really need, start by looking through the sets you already own. You can use this guide, I'll pop it on my blog, to see if you can create your own pastel collection simply by rearranging what you already have and even using a white pencil to lighten some of your regular colors. From there, you might choose to add on a smaller set, something like the Black Widow Monarch set Or you might even buy some of your favorite colors from the Holbein pastel tones as individual pencils. I think for me, because I don't use pastels all that often, I would be happier with a smaller set. Maybe with some of these brighter pastels that are a bit more of the pretty colors and less of the gray pastels. So a set of 25, or even just picking out some of the pastels from the sets I already have, is perfect. The budget alternatives like the Pastel Love and Marco are great to offer those unique colors for cheaper. But I wouldn't rely on these as your main set of pencils. But there's no denying they look beautiful. And sometimes that's all you're looking for. If you found this video helpful, please tell me in the comments and check out these videos here for more reviews and coloring tutorials on my channel. Thanks so much for watching.